project is we had 19 fun projects to grade. We didn't have 108. I had two. I had 40 of them. 20, yeah.
They're teaching their section.
Right. And, you know, we planned the sections together. And most of, I would say most of their labor was in evaluating student work and in facilitating in their discussion sections because, you know, they weren't trying to pull teeth. So, you know, what did you read? Students showed up with warm-up in the section and they would say, well, now this is what we want you to do with that law.
Jeff, did you have a question?
Was it really clear when you first started doing this how to balance the individual work with the team-based work, and with that being no, anything to share with us about sort of the experiences you had along the way to finally settle on whatever the balance is that you have now?
I'm still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
How many semesters at this point have you?
I think I've been doing it 3. Yeah, this is my 3rd iteration. And the first time it was, which is the time I used the rats, it was not a disaster, but it took constant tweaking to sort of keep the students in the game, as it were. Some of it is, it seems to me that students are changing, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. The students are as good, the students who are doing the work are as good as they ever were. I mean, they do some things better than students used to do, and they're not as good at certain things, but on balance, they're not the same place. But I am seeing an increasing number of students who, despite all of the implications of team-based learning, don't really get it. I just spoke to a student who didn't really get the fact that, you know, he turned in the homeworks, but he didn't show up at all for the first poster, so he got a 0, and his team said he didn't do anything for the second poster, so he got a 0.8 multiplier, and then they said he really didn't do anything for the final poster, he got a 0.5 multiplier, and he was coming in to complain that I'd given him a G. And I had to sort of say to him, well, you know, you really got an F in this course. You got it by the grace of God, D. So I think it's not always clear to students.
If I could just make a quick comment, the way I have my teams do the assessment is a jump off from something that Joan gave us a year or 2 ago. It has a qualitative, sometimes, always, often, never, and then a quantitative, and then a qualitative. But the way they're scored is each student, part of their assessment score is the quantitative evaluation of their peers. The other part is the quality of their qualitative evaluation given to their peers. So if you say, what's the best thing Joe did? Joe was great. You're going to get almost nothing. Or Joe sucked. And we ask the same 2 questions that you always ask, but they're told very explicitly, why was Joe great? Or why did Joe suck? And that's going to reflect on your score, not Joe's. You got this up here, and of course then if there's a real divergence, you have to address that. But
so that it's very upfront that part of your score is how you are evaluated, but also how you evaluate others.
Right, and we actually lay it out in the beginning as a separate score. The project is built out of all these components, but your team-based assessment represents this percentage of the entire project. The team shares in this other part of the project score. And so everybody gets credit for that part, but what I've learned, and this is probably a version of your multiplier, is you end up actually making the project itself, the final product, a much lower percentage of the entire project score than the students might expect. And then I try to sell it from the start as, this is a process. And so you're being evaluated by us and by your peers during the entire process. The end product is an important part of it, but here are all the other pieces. And they like it better when they can actually see independently, and then they get, after each one where there's an assessment, they get a copy of the form with all their scores and all their comments, And you can actually see if you stay on top of it and you do 2 or 3 of these in a semester, things do change for most of the students, and then you have the, I don't understand it. But that's what
Are
I,
you using iPeer?
pardon me?
Are you using iPeer? No, you're not actually using iPeer, that, because that's an iPeer form, but.
We put it online, so there is an online version.
But that's what I found that balanced it, is that if you actually made part of their own score based on the quality of the feedback they provided, then it got rid of the, everybody gives them, why can't we all have A's? You know, everybody gets 100 out of 100 on their assessment, is that now they're thinking more critically and hopefully more fairly about it. And that was a longer time than I intended, sorry.
Why don't we go on to the second part? We're starting to get into sort of the questions that probably both of you have on there.
Maybe as I go kind of